Okay, so, okay, so we have a quorum. We have the other two members of the committee here, and so we'd like to go ahead and call the meeting to order. And may we start with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Gordon or Mr. Nay, would you like to make a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Ms. Gordon, would you like to second?
Second the motion.
All in favor? Raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Ms. Cushingberry, any public comments, ma'am?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Nay or Ms. Gordon, would either one of you like to make a motion for approval of minutes, December the 19th, 2023?
So moved.
Second by Gordon.
Okay, thank you both. All in favor, raise your right hand, saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you both. Okay, Ms. Walton. You are up, ma'am. You can lead us through the HR administrative regulation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dallas. We have three ARs to bring before you today. Two of those ARs, HRS 48, HRS 55, coming from HR, and then SS will be coming from student services. HRS 48 is our sick leave bank policy. And we have a few substantive changes to that. We're going to try to make this as quick and simple as possible. Rosella is here because she manages our sick leave bank. Rosella, if you would just run through what the substantive changes are for this AR.
Sure, the substance changes for this AR is that, okay. The substance changes for this AR is that we would like to change the number of days that an employee needs to have from 8 to 7 to become a member after they've been with us for 1 full year. Also now, because of the PPL, the paid paternal leave, we want to remove allow employees to be able to use the sick leave bank for maternity purposes now that they have the paid paternity leave that they have 30 days for. And this will also outline to let them know that if they don't elect to be a member when they're first hired, if they do it during the open enrollment period, that the membership is not effective until the first of the year, that January following the open enrollment. And that also now that there is a 90-day waiting period if they want to use those days from that bank, if they join in the open enrollment period. Those are the significant changes in this policy.
Okay. Mr. Nay or Mrs. Gordon, either of you have any questions or comments?
I do not. The pre-read is pretty straightforward. Thank you.
I do not have any questions at this time either.
Mr. Colonel Guy and Earl Campbell are on the phone.
Oh, Colonel Guyer, Mr. Campbell, welcome to both of you. I read the materials. One question, the bank, it seems like you have to use it. You can't do partial. Did I read that? I don't have it in front of me now.
Okay, 15 days is the maximum that they can grant them, so if they don't need all 15 days or have to use, then the remaining days are forfeit. Right. Exactly.
Okay. Any questions, Mr. Nay or Ms. Gordon? If not, is there a motion?
We don't need it.
Sorry. Okay, on to the next one.
The next one is HRS 55 access badges. This is the brand new AR. We have not had this before, but because of typically we do these things and it has just been practice. So what we're doing now is making it more legal by creating an AR to go. And it's to control badges that we issue to employees as well as vendors. And it's far reaching to keep control over who has access to our buildings, when and how often. And I'm sure you've read through, if you have any questions that you want to ask, you can. We can start by going through the AR, but it's just too long. There's specific questions we'd be happy to answer.
I think it gives us comprehensive ownership of the vetting process, looking at backgrounds and controlling the badge access for a variety of groups that are under our umbrella, but we may not actually control, be it vendors, outside entities that use our facilities. And it tightens control and it gives us ownership of the whole process. And I think it will serve to mitigate our risk and limit the liabilities that the school district have.
Okay, I was very impressed by the fact that you consider situations such as the badge owner being escorted by someone if they didn't have a badge, had to be escorted. And then also if there was a serious illness, you made provisions for how that's handled. So I saw things there that would not hit my radar ordinarily, but you thought it was very thorough. You know, you looked at it and said, yeah, let's cover it all.
I think these are good protective practices and it will lead to a better and more refined process for badge access.
Okay. Any, moving on, comments?
Yeah, I think just because this is the first iteration, it's probably going to be like a living document, or at least subject to maybe some revision in about a year or so once we go through the policy, and it's been enacted for a year or so. But I think we got a good start with it. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Nate. Yeah.
Jenny, anything you want to add? Background check, Stuart? Background check, do you want to mention?
Well, and the only thing I could think of is that in a contract or a vendor situation, that those costs would be borne on the vendor. To basically, it would be built into the contracts that they would have to pay for their share of activities.
And all of those expire every 2-year intervals, so they have to redo it every 2 years.
Yeah, is the third one yours?
Yes. The next is SS 59, and it is our emergency school closings, delayed openings, and early dismissals. And I think with this AR, what we added was our processes for reunification.
Correct.
And I'm gonna let Kiki talk a little bit about what we had to answer this.
Sure, this is essentially taking the reunification plan that was presented to this committee, I guess, last maybe October, I think. October, November. Over the last few months, we came in and presented the reunification plan that was created and developed for our procedures with regard to reunification. So we're just formalizing it by adding that to this administrative regulation, which essentially takes where we would have an opportunity to remove students from the school, whether it's for an early dismissal, those closings, the delayed opening, reunification tends to fall right within that scope. So we wanted to add it here versus with the crisis response, which is SS 58. So we felt it was more appropriate here. So what we've done is basically added the responsibilities with reunification along with the academic continuity and then the re-entry after reunification with the consideration for our students with disabilities.
Mr. Nate, Ms. Gordon, any comments?
I had nothing. Pre-read was pretty expressive. Thank you.
Ms. Gordon? Colonel Guyer, Mr. Campbell?
No, I don't have any comments. Thank you.
Colonel Guyer just got back in.
Okay. Yes, he thank you. He had a cold.
No.
Okay, Colonel Guyer was not feeling well earlier. So was in a meeting. Okay,
No, that is it. Now, Mr. Dallas, unless you have questions for us.
I have none.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
And thank you all for coming and helping. I'm a newbie, so I'll probably be asking questions in the future, but thank you.
Anytime, no problem.
Raider Drive easement.
Yes, and I just got an email from Dominion, so they may not be online right now, so you may want to go to the next one and wait until they get online.
Okay, the next few are you as well.
Yep.
You wanna come closer?
Yep, I will. Just sending.
I believe the next one's construction updates, right?
Yes, sir.
I'll be glad to oblige if I may. Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to provide an executive construction update. In the reports distributed for tonight's meeting, you will see that there's 2 projects with yellow traffic lights that appear in this month's project updates. The first one's associated with Robert Small's Leadership Academy, slide 4 in the presentation materials. The yellow light is for the phase 2 schedule concerns. The original schedule called for the site contractor to mobilize before the end of the year in December. The site contractor chose and really didn't want to mobilize until the entire site was ready for them. J.E. Dunn has put site contractor on notice that doing so could result in potential schedule delays. Since then, the site contractor has mobilized, which is good news. And J.E. Dunn is working with the site contractor to obtain what is referred to as a recovery schedule, so that anytime that may have been, lost is regained, so that we can keep the original schedule. That recovery schedule is scheduled to be received and distributed prior to close of business this Friday. So once we receive that, we'll go through it with the entire team. And if the recovery schedule allows the original completion, great news. It was effective as intended. But in the event that it doesn't, project manager has already been directed to be prepared to issue a notice letter to J.E. Dunn in the event that it's necessary.
There's hands up.
Mr. Nate?
Yeah, yes, thank you. Can you like expound or maybe define what to mobilize is?
Mobilization is just basically getting all of the equipment and manpower to the site, so that the scope that they've been put under contract for with J.E. Dunn can commence on schedule.
Okay, so just so I understand it, basically it's the contractor is moving all equipment into the area so that they begin whatever work they were hired to do.
All the site work that they were hired, correct?
Okay,
And they
awesome.
have
Thank you.
mobilized now.
All right, thank you.
You bet.
Ms. Gordon? Any questions from you, ma'am?
She's not on right now.
Okay.
She's on now.
Moving along,
Mr. Campbell or? Colonel Matt?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay.
Don't refer to me.
the second yellow light that's in the materials for tonight is associated with River Ridge Academy. That yellow light's tied to the permitting delays that we've experienced from Beaufort Jasper Water and Sewer Authority. That's the acronym, the BJWSA, that you sometimes see with materials. A little background on the permit. Permit was applied for and submitted back in September of last year. Some back and forth took place between Beaufort Jasper Water Sewer Authority and the district, and we finally got a statement of the impact fees on February 6th. We've reviewed that. We're processing that as we speak for that impact fee. And as soon as that payment takes place, that'll allow the permit to be released and our athletic construction may commence. So we're on the cusp of getting that work done. And in case there was a question how much those fees may be, they were $7,490.
What was the original amount?
I don't have that one. It was way higher though. You may know that.
It was closer to $60,000-$70,000. So
Right.
that
So,
was the fight, was to get those fees down. That's what.
and how they were calculating it. Yeah, we took a more sensible
Disagreement.
approach. Yeah.
Well, kudos to you for challenging it and getting a reduction of what, 50
Call it 50 grand.
50 grand. Well done.
Real money.
Real money.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Are there any questions before moving on?
Mr. Nay or Ms. Gordon?
Not a question, but it's a little disappointing that, the Beaufort Jasper Sewer Company and Water keeps asking us for easements, but they can't streamline our permit process a little bit. That's frustrating.
Yes, sir.
We agree.
I'd say I am, since that time, some of the administration in Beaufort Jasper have reached out, so we are actually going to be meeting with them next week, just so we can start building some relationships and hopefully some better lines of communication between our two organizations.
Great idea. Thank you.
I'm good, I can go with this.
Okay.
Well, I'll go ahead and continue on with my update. Slide 9, we have the new PK5 elementary school at May River campus. Design development documents, those are referred to as DDs, are on schedule to be received next month in March. Design is progressing using insulated concrete forms, as well as a geothermal heat pump HVAC system. For those that may not be familiar with the geothermal heat pump system, it is a very efficient system that many other districts have chosen to standardize on, just because of the improvement of the reliability, but also in the reduction of the operating costs and operating maintenance. Once you get it in, it's sort of like if you bought a refrigerator for your house. If you're going to have a problem, you'll see it in the warranty period, but if it doesn't have a problem, you can count on that to just keep running smoothly for another 20 years or so. So I commend the district. I've put in these systems before, and like I said, it's not pioneering anything, just experiencing a new system that very similar to other heat pump systems that have been done by the district before, but instead of using a boiler or cooling tower, for example, those two components don't exist in a geothermal heat pump. Basically, what you're doing is using the ground heats to either reject heat to when you're cooling or to extract it when you need to provide heat for your building. Moving on to Hilton Head Island High School athletics, slide 16. The South Carolina Department of Environmental SCDEH-EC permit for the new field house is anticipated to be received in February. So any day now it should come in, and once that happens, we'll be able to start that work associated with the new field house. Work on the existing field house has been completed, and the final OSF inspection scheduled to take place tomorrow. So we're excited to get that inspected.
Tomorrow's 14th.
Tomorrow's the 14th? Right, yeah. I'm on.
Valentine's Day.
Stop. I'll tell my wife I already went shopping for it. I thought it was today. The other update, well, slide 17 is for our major project under advanced design under the old program, as well as the largest one in the new 2023 bond referendum is Hilton Head Island High School. Phase 1 construction document review with Office of School Facilities took place back on January 11th and January 12th. Those review comments have been shared with Little Associates. They've already addressed those comments. For Hilton Head Design Review Board comments, they were received on the 23rd of January, so not too long ago, and Little Diversified is addressing those comments. And we are working on the destructive testing results, and once again, that's to avoid a similar situation that we experienced at Robert Smalls, and that additional abatement need to be dealt with. So as soon as we get the destructive test result, we should also have the phase 1 guaranteed maximum price proposal, and updated cost estimates for the remaining work. So we can take a look to see where we stand overall and make sure that everything's good to move forward with as far as the budget is concerned. Talking referendum project closeout, slides 54 through 56. There are 35 project closeouts remaining. And once again, once we get one across the finish line, we will report that it's closed and then it will come off of the list. But right now, the list that you see in the materials is still reflecting 35 projects to complete all the way. But we're also tracking, if you remember, using our monthly financial summary. That's the attachment 3 that went out with the distribution. Some refer to it as the 519 report. There's now a total of 183 financial commitments that have been completed to date. And when we were last together back in December, that number I reported was 170. So making headway on that and encouraging the project managers just to complete the projects just as quickly as they can so that we can get these things closed out and focus our attentions on the next round of projects. Updating for the financial update, slide 58. And once again, these figures are through the end of January. Financial update is being reported overall with a green traffic light. That's indicating there's no concerns at this time. Current referendum budget is still $375,710,000. Our paid and committed funds are now totaling almost 100% of that total value of the budget. It's 99.43. The figures just over $373.5 million. Our paid expenditures are totaling just over 80% of the funds at $301.4 million. The remaining available funds, including contingency, total just a little bit more than $2.1 million. And contingency activity for the last 2 months, since we didn't get a chance to really provide you the figures at the end of December because of having to change the committee and get it scheduled. We saw over that 2-month period, funds returned of $274,922, and that's coming from closing out projects and finalizing the cost of work associated with these guaranteed maximum prices. And we did use $140,901. Contingency remaining at the end of January, total just under $400,000. But once again, we are still forecasting that soft landing that you've heard me mention time and time again. We are still seeing that, and we actually got additional cost of work savings proposal that came in that is going to return a significant amount of money as well from work that's been completed. So we'll be pushing those amendments out here in the next few days and bolstering that bottom line to help ensure that soft landing is a reality.
That will be an amazing accomplishment with all the challenges of COVID and what have you, the supply disruption to the supply chain.
Yeah,
And if there's just at least $1 left in contingency, that's wonderful.
I think you'd be pleased with what's left.
Sounds good, man.
The last item I always update is statuses and updates on requests for proposals and requests for qualifications. I did want to share updates on 2. In particular, RFQ 24-009, that's the Capital Program Management and Coordination Services. Proposals were received on January 17th. And right now it's anticipated that the review committee recommendations, that submittal to the board would take place in the month of March.
I have a question on that. Who composes the review committee?
So that is coordinated with procurement. So we do not announce who's on the committee typically.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay.
But individual roll in and roll out from RFQ or RFP to RFQ to RFP. So it's not the same folks, it's a rotating group.
Yeah. Be glad to go.
Sounds good.
And the other one was for RFQ 24-012. That's the services associated with roofing. Proposals were received on January 22nd. And once again, it's anticipated that the review committee recommendations would be brought to the board in March as well. That concludes my update, and I'll pause to see if there's any other questions.
Let's ask the committee members, Ms. Gordon. Do you have any questions or comments, ma'am?
I don't at this time, but I will be reading this and looking over it. I appreciate your time. With this update. Thank you.
Mr. Nate?
No questions. Great work as always. Thank you so much.
Mr. Campbell?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Colonel Guy.
Is Colonel Guy, Colonel Guy?
Nothing, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
If we can go back to the Dominion Energy River Drive gas easement request, I believe Mr. Crosby is now online. Just to set the stage before I hand it to him, this is for Dominion Energy for a gas line interconnect, and they've approached us. And with that, I will hand it over to you, Mr. Crosby, if you want to give some explanation on the request.
Sure, that's no problem. So I guess I'll just start from the beginning and kind of what we need to do here. So we have a 6-inch gas line that is currently serving Baynard Park. And for us to serve that community, when we did, we had to run a temporary line across the parkway, which is only a 2-inch gas line. And that was just a temporary setup to get them up and going. And now we're at the need in order to tie in our 6-inch completely to a regulating station that is right at Raider Drive. So we're asking for about a 450-foot section connection right there where that red line is to be able to tie into that 6-inch so we can serve that community fully so we don't have any pressure issues in the future.
I'll just add that.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So if I could just add the location where they're requesting is in the Raider Drive easement, which has already been granted public access for the fire station. So they are requesting the rights to replace this in the right of way of the Raider Drive. It's actually an easement, not a right of way.
Okay, Ms. Gordon? Or Mr. Nate? Any questions or comments?
Nothing. Thank you.
Is there a motion?
Yes, there is a motion on there if you can click the bottom of the page, it's right there.
Okay, Mr. Nate or Ms. Gordon, either one of you like to make this motion?
I move that the board accept the access easement on Raider Drive as seen as shown on the Exhibit A for Dominion Energy South Carolina Incorporated, and authorize the superintendent to finalize the easement documents.
Is there a second? Mr. Nate, you second?
Yeah, I second. We don't have to bring this to the full board?
It's a recommendation to take it to the full board.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. It sounded like it was just straight up. Okay, yeah. I recommend we take a second to, yes, all that.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you, passes unanimous.
Mr. Crosby, thank you very much. This will be presented at the board meeting a week from today.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the disc renovation plan. All right, what I'm presenting to you today is what we are looking for in future renovations here at this building. So if you go on to the next slide. Just for a brief history of this building, it was built in 1972. It served as a school for almost 20 years until the new Battery Creek High School was built in 1991. We actually worked at moving into this building or started using this building in the mid 2000s, and then in 2009 it was completely renovated and the district staff was consolidated and moved into this building. Then 2013 Right Choices area was added, and now we're looking at a project to renovate the entire building. I will say that this came out of having some HVAC projects that needed to be approved. And as we started getting into the HVAC projects, we realized that in order to replace the HVAC systems, we're gonna have to replace ceiling grid, then which would impact fire alarm, and then it would impact fire loop. So there was a lot that was gonna happen just with the replacement of the HVAC systems. So with that going forward, we looked at making the building work more efficiently and effectively for the district office. So if we go to the next slide. So what is good? One of the best things about this building is just having all of the district staff in one location. This allows us to collaborate with each other, allows us to go down the hall. If I need something from ISD, if you need something from Candace's office, we're all here under one building, and that is a great benefit to the staff of the building. Next. So and then over the years, since 2009, when we started moving into this building, we've added a lot of systems that are specifically for our use. Now, many of these would be very hard to duplicate. Of course, this building has our boardroom, which is also used as a training facility. It's also one of the few places we have for large events. It's where our district staff office meet. And a key part of that is we have the parking that is needed to house all those events when they occur here. Of course, we have some transportation features such as the propane bus fueling station. It's also the only fenced-in bus lot that we have, which we're wanting to expand that to many other bus lots. One of our biggest item is that the district office has the NOC, or the Network Operations Center. With that 1 gig fiber connection, that would be a massive item if we had to replace it in a different location. Along with the NOC, we have a generator large enough to run the NOC. It also is large enough to run the food coolers that we have down here, along with providing air conditioning to this building when needed. So portions of this building are used as a command center at the end, a hurricane or something of that nature. If power is out throughout the county, this is the one place district staff can meet in order to start preparing plans to address emergency such as a hurricane or large storm. And then lastly, this is kind of a feature, but we have a solar field over here that provides enough power for this entire building. So for the most part, the electricity in this building, we actually make money on it. We produce more energy and funds than we spend. We had a district with Dominion that gives us 13 cents per kilowatt hour, and actually we pay less than that. So we make more on the energy we produce than we pay for the energy we use. Then the last item is that this building, you just say, has good bones, and it's easy with the large spaces in the middle to reconfigure. So it does give us the ability to, it's got a steel structure throughout, so you can take down the walls, and it's a steel structure with block infill, which allows you to tear down walls, add walls, move things around, which helps us create office spaces and things of that nature. Next slide. So then I took this off the good, the bad, and the ugly, of course. So now we talk about what is bad, or a better way to say that, or what are some things that we could improve this building with. Number one is safety and security. We do not have a secured entrance at this building, similar to all of our schools. That is something we would like to add, because we do get a lot of visitors in this building, and sometimes there can be visitors that are not very happy with, or not coming here under good circumstances. The fire department has said that any activities that we add to this building, or anything we add to this building, will be required to put a fire loop, extend the fire loop around it. So we know that's something that's going to have to occur. And then OSF has told us that if we do any additions to this building or any kind of modifications, we're going to have to add a fire sprinkler system since it's a business occupancy. And then age of the building. This all started with the HVAC systems, which several of these systems, especially in the front half of the building, need to be replaced. The air conditioning units over the superintendent's office, over Ms. Walton's office, over the chief of ISD, and over Candace's office. All 4 of those units are about 24 years old, so they have far exceeded their lifetime. So they are at the end, and we can't expect them to last much longer. The fire alarm system needs to be replaced. You can no longer get parts for that system, so a lot of the time we have to repair it. We are buying parts off of eBay. Carpet, of course, is 10 to 15 years old, so it's lasted beyond its lifespan. And then we do have several plumbing problems, specifically at the end of the hall down here, where transportation is. It gets clogged on a very often basis, and that plumbing needs to be redone. Of course, and there are windows that need to be replaced. Several other items you see on there, and no defined entrance. It's every other week I see somebody wandering around the parking lot trying to figure out how to get in this building. So we need something that says, here's the entrance where you come to if you're visiting the building. No security for night meetings. We're not able to close off areas that we'd like to close off. And then restrooms, we already talked about some of the major plumbing issues, but they just need to be updated. And the board meeting space could be optimized to run board meetings more efficiently and safely for the board members. Next slide. So where are we? We're looking at what our options are in this building. And option 1 would be to do nothing. Keep the building going as it is as best we can. Of course, just the replacement of the HVAC system, all the systems that need to be replaced, it's about $18 million. And the reason that number is so high is pretty much every system in the front of the building needs to be replaced. Matter of fact, the older systems that I talked about are on the exterior of the front. In the middle of the front where finance is, that system's not quite as old. It's about 15 years old, but it's been down for 2 weeks and they no longer make parts for it. So we had to bring in a specialist from North Carolina to come look at it. We're having to search vendors all over the country to find any spare parts that are left for it. That's not a good system either. So we know all these HVAC systems are going to need replaced. When they get replaced, we know we're going to replace the sprinkler system. We know we're going to replace the fire alarm system. So all those are going to be required, and replace the ceiling grid when we replace HVAC. So all that adds up to that $18 million price tag. You'll go to the next slide. Option 2, one option is to break this office into smaller locations. We've had some conversations in the past. We've looked at leasing spaces for some of the office. Of course, the problem with leasing spaces is it would be a charge to the operations budget, which that, is, we're in a tight budget situation as it is, so that would add more expense. Of course, we'd also need, if we're going to buy a building, we'd have to find a location, and then if we do break up into smaller locations, that will break up the different departments of the office and limit our ability to work together closely and collaborate on a daily basis. Next slide. So option 3, what we could do is go and build a new building somewhere. We do have almost 20 acres at the Okeetee, near in front of the Okeetee Elementary School campus on 170. This site, as it sits today with everything on it, is a little over 20 acres. That property at Okeetee is 20 acres, but then it has wetlands, so it's really about 15. It would be hard for us to sit all the facilities we have here on that site unless we built, say, a 3-story building. With that, we probably could fit it on there, but it would be tight. Our estimated cost for something like that at a minimum would be $50 million. With the expansion of the Knox and some of the other things, we brought all the features here. I would expect it to exceed $50 million. So the question is, for something of that high a price tag, we'd probably have to wait for a referendum. And then the question is whether there would be public support for something that high cost for a district office. Next slide. So option 4 would be to renovate this building all at once. In other words, put a contractor under contract for the complete amount. The estimated cost to renovate this entire building would be at least $20 million. We have $5 to $7 million available. So what that number is indicating is we already have approved 8% projects for HVAC systems in the amount of 5 to 7. The reason for that spread is we did have ESSER funds approved for this building, but we are now relocating those funds from this building to Okatee Elementary and Coosa. Yeah, that's right. And that is to ensure that we can spend them in time of the ESSER deadline of September, because we're fearful we would not make that if we kept those funds associated with this building. So those funds at Coosa and Okatee are funded with 8% funds right now. So there could be the ability to pay for those projects with ESSER, move the 8% funds that were dedicated for this project back to this building. So if that's the case, we would keep $7 million in funding. Next slide. The next option is to spread the project over 5 years and spread the funding over 5 years. That would be using 8% funds. We have 5 to 7 existing, so that means you need another 18 million over the next 4 years. So that would be, approximately $5 to $6 million every year of 8% funds that would go to the renovation of this building. Next slide. So the next slide, just some of the objectives of items that we'd like to achieve by renovating this building. I've already talked about many of these. Of course, we need to replace the HVAC systems. We're going to consolidate the departments to improve their efficiency, add the secured vestibule, improve the boardroom. What we're looking to do in the boardroom, by the way, is getting rid of the HVAC duct that goes through the middle. We're going to turn the space 90 degrees, and we're going to add doors that can lock that portion of the building down so people can only get to the boardroom and the restrooms in the area. It would allow for the parking would occur where we have most of them come in today, and they would enter one side of the building and board members and staff could exit on the other side. Then of course we solve some code issues. ADA compliance is something else that has to be done when we touch this building. We've already talked about the sprinkler system and fire alarm. We could also add new lightings and windows and cameras and technology. With that, I'll hand it over to Mark to kind of talk about some of the phasing or how this might work.
As you can see, if you look at the plan, the different colored areas on the plan represent different internal departments within the building. And currently, those departments are not as consolidated as they really ideally need to. There's certain executives, senior staff that are located in one part of the building, and their staff is located in a separate. We have gone through and really now have a plan in place that consolidates all of these departments. Doesn't necessarily move people around as much as you might think, but it does get all of these executive directors back in the same home base that their staff is at. And then at the same time, we've always looked at the need to phase this work because we don't have the ability to basically abandon this building, work on it, and then move back in. So you go to the next slide, what you'll see is sort of the plan to work on some storage buildings or storage spaces within the building and other spaces to allow us to create some temporary office space that we then can move into renovate the space that we moved staff out of. And then we would move those staff back into a renovated area and continue that as we go around the building. And once we sort of get this temporary first phase done, you'll see that, you know, the main focus is to create a new entrance into the entry lobby and also then start in the HR department, and that would be the first phase of the renovation. Next. We mentioned that one thing about this building that it does not have is a secure entrance. And what we're showing here is a small addition to the front of the building, which then allows us to create that secure entrance. Rework the reception desk, and it then has its own security, which is a combination of the cabinet itself and the glass that's above it, and then the configuration. You now access it from behind a set of locked doors through really a mail space, but it goes through an office into that reception area, and then the waiting area functions as a normal waiting area. We also then gain a public restroom up front. People that are visitors then can, in essence, use that restroom without being released into the building, which is really a problem that happens right now. Next. And then these next couple of slides just are the artists' renditions of what this renovated lobby would look like. You see the new security desk on the right side, some seating, a little bit taller spaces, some natural light. Next, please. Looking back from the existing hallway again, reception desk is off to the left, the new entrance and glass is off to the right. And this is what the proposed front new entrance to the building would look like. It creates that sense of space. It gives a clear entrance to what this building is. As we mentioned, it does not have that, not in our opinion, it needs it. Next. That's it.
Okay, any questions or comments, Ms. Gordon or Mr. Nay?
No questions. It's clear because you guys have already laid out the phase plan. Everybody's supporting the option 5, I would to assume. So is the recommendation to go to the full board and say we recommend option 5? Is that what we're all kind of thinking?
You're asking me not at this time, and
Okay.
I'll share what my thoughts are. The full primary options, or the first 3, are absolutely where you're costing and looking at what your most likely or desired options are. Anytime you have something that is so major, you also have another option, and I think we have to extend the same rigor around, which is bringing the looking at this, doing nothing, which you have to do nothing. But what's the prognostication on how long this equipment will last? I know I'm asking a lot here.
Well, when you have a 24-year-old air conditioning unit, and air conditioning units last from 15 to 20 years. So I would say, so what you have, you look at over 50% of this building, 60% of that building. There are, let's say there's 6 units, 6 areas. Of those 6 areas, 4 are approximately 4 years old, so that means you might as well call them done. And so, and let me explain, well, and then the other 2 are the units that you can no longer get parts for or no longer supported. So we're at a stage where really the whole portion up there is at any time at the end of its life.
You're really on borrowed time.
Yeah, and what we are looking in those units, and the way that we did that is those units were for schools and large classroom spaces, and we came in and cut them up into little offices. They don't really work well that way because portions are hot, portions are cold. We get complaints all the time because it doesn't move air evenly through small little spaces and you don't have control. So we're gonna go back in there and put systems that allow individual office control for more of an office environment instead of what they were built for, which is large classrooms is what they, so.
Okay, so I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so there's a study of science called tribology, which is the study of failure, particularly mechanical failure. How long will operation run before you can numerically predict when it's going to fail? So I guess what I'm suggesting is that you just pursue that and include a statistic on that. Anecdotally, that 24 years, yes. But if you can find any data on that, that would just reinforce that do nothing.
For HVAC systems, it's often analyzed from a life cycle cost. Where, like what Robert was saying,
Right.
you know, with these type of units that are in here, that 15 to 20 year period is what you're hope to receive and going past that, but you could do, I guess, a life cycle cost analysis to help, I guess, reinforce the recommendation that this is wise to spend money in this fashion.
Yeah. So if you do the tribology perspective and the life cycle cost, I think those two data points will just help with it. So people don't even question. Important.
Thank you. I was listening to the funding for option 4. You say this would be funded by the 8%.
Could be, I mean, yeah.
Could be. And using this option 4, it would take a year's worth of 8% funding in order to, I think, the cost approximately being $20 million. Okay, so this is not any monies that we'll be taking from our constituencies. This would just be money that we have.
No, I guess, I mean, so we have a financial plan that includes using 8% funding every year. In past years, like this last year, we actually bumped it up to $30 million. Prior to that, it had been set for $25 million a year. And we probably spend we spend about $5 million in technology every year. Then there's some vehicles and other things like that, band uniforms that we'd probably still do. So we need another $15 million. So what we're saying there is if we paid for it in 1 year, that would pretty much wipe out what we call kind of our summer work, what we do, our paintings, our air conditioners, our roofs. It would pretty much wipe out that for a year if we funded this building in its entirety.
So if we fund this building, what happens to the property that we own in Oakland that was set aside for possibly a new building? So we have that property still just sitting.
Yes, it would leave it there. I mean, it'd leave it there to be available for other uses.
Mr. Nate?
Nothing else. Thank you.
Maybe when you were giving the recap.
So I'll just share my perspective. I think since this is the first time that we've had a chance to collectively look at it, let's give a little time to soak, go back and refine some of the analysis. You've done a great job with laying out multiple options and sub options in terms of the variability of those options. So let's give it some time to soak and add a little bit more data points. And let's see how that goes forward. Yes, ma'am.
Colonel Geyer stands up.
Colonel Geyer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got some concerns. The 5-year plan sounds good, but it won't cost 23 million. It'll cost more because you're going to have 5 years of inflation by the time you get done with it. That's a problem. What if you just replace the HVAC all at once, replace the HVAC, and that seems to be the thing that is most likely to fail, And we live with what we've got until the next referendum, when we have a better idea of growth and requirements. I think that, you know, some of these options about having the staff working from home for a year or so, or 3 years, that's crazy. But, and the 8%, I am concerned about using 8% for this, other than well within the 25 to $30 million range every year. I'm concerned about that. That's our reserve, and we're falling in the same trap that we were in when I came on the board 5 years ago. Because I think your costs are lowballed. I think their costs are going to be more than any renovation. I don't care where you're at, never comes in on budget, hardly ever. And who knows what they're going to find in this 1972 building, and who knows what OSF is going to find. So this is risky to use 8%, but I agree we need to fix the HVAC. And if we replace the HVAC and do it right, the HVAC will be ready for whatever other option that we choose on how you set the footprint later on. That's just my first thoughts on this. Thank you.
If I can, so I understand your point, Colonel Guyer. One of the issues with the HVAC, one of the systems that are located in finance and HR and those areas, they are systems that are called variable refrigerant flow. Yeah, VRFs, variable refrigerant flow. What that means is there's piping above the ceilings throughout these spaces, and what that happens is to replace those units are obsolete, and we can't like swap out the units up top. We have to replace the entire system. So when we replace the entire system, we impact the ceiling grid. When we impact the ceiling grid, OSF says you have to sprinkler the entire building. So it's kind of like this snowball effect that occurred once we started looking into the HVAC system. If all we had to do was go swap out the big units on the roof and walk away, that would be a lot less expensive and easy to do. But this one is so complicated, or it's got so much that we're going to be required to do the HVAC system replacements, which is not typical. But because it is that way, we have to touch a lot more than just the HVAC to replace the HVAC. Okay.
Mr. Camp?
Yes,
Do you have any comments, sir?
I would suggest that he do what Colonel Guy said, and then next referendum include it in that. Because if you don't have enough money now, you know, to do it.
Mr. Smith is on as well.
Mr. Smith? Mr. Smith,
Yes, sir.
have any comments, sir?
No, I'm just taking this in. I'm just listening. I have no comments today.
Okay. I think what we're hearing is that there's more work to be done. And so applaud you for the efforts you've taken so far, but let's go back and get a little bit more rigor, float it around, solicit input from various stakeholders, and see if we can't bring it back in sometime in the future. I think finances are tight, so we got to be very cognizant of that. I appreciate what you've done. We appreciate it. Okay, Ms. Otter, you're up next again, sir.
I am going to pass this off to Miss Randy Majors. We're going to talk about the custodial and maintenance update.
Welcome, Ms. Majors.
Thank you. Good evening, Committee Chair, Mr. Dallas, welcome, and fellow committee members. So tonight, we're going to be presenting the February maintenance and custodial update. This report covers the period of time from the month of January 1 through the 31st. So I'm just gonna go through the custodial first and just hit some spotlights, some high points of each section. So the first section I want to touch on is our spot inspection report. What occurred during the month of January is we did have 13 spot inspection scores that fell in the month of December below that 80% minimum requirement. We did complete re-inspections during January, in which those re-inspections did pass. We completed new inspections in January and saw that 5 spot inspections did not pass, and those repeat inspections will be done in February. In total, as far as our overall numbers for our spot inspections, in January, we saw that 20 spot inspections were completed by district office staff. That covered 5 schools, and our inspection average for that was right at 82%. We did have our HES account managers who completed 250 inspections, and their averages for north of the Broad was 76 and south of the Broad 82%. The goal going forward in the coming months is for our HES managers to continue to increase their spot inspection totals. We are a little low this month with those, as well as continue to push communications with school administration to address ongoing concerns. So I'm going to move down now to the staffing percentages. You'll see, and that's going to be on your second page, Robin. Thank you. You'll see in the staffing percentages that we did not have any violations or staffing levels that hit below the 70% mark in January. The report information that you see in front of you is current through February 8th of 2024. We are providing staffing percentages for the November, December, and January timeframe. That's that part. I'm going to move on to recognizing success. So we had a good bit of high points with HES over the month of January. We saw HES continuing to push to recruit for local qualified candidates, as well as they completed 2 employee internal transfers, one of which was a lead supervisor role who was promoted to an account manager, as well as a custodian that was promoted to a night lead supervisor. We also saw from our staffing that we had multiple schools, Battery Creek High School, Buford Middle School, Shanklin Elementary, and St. Helena have a full staffing level percentage reported. HES was also instrumental in hiring a local bilingual candidate for their main administrative district office position, which is key because that role services Beaufort County as a whole. In addition, we saw them add additional equipment to the contract at H.E. McCracken and Ladies Island Middle School, as well as support both Beaufort Jasper Academy of Career Excellence to support their visits from the Palmetto's Finance Committee, which again required additional custodial service work, as well as they supported Ladies Island Elementary School, who hosted an event called the Low Country Regional Leader in Me Community Day. And that allowed for other school districts such as Charleston and Berkeley to come in and actually look at the school and see how their Leader in Me program was being executed at that school and how successful they were there. So I applaud HES for that. They really pulled out all the stops for supporting those 2 big events. You'll see here we do have some spotlight pictures for flooring service. So these were the services that were completed over the holiday break. You've got Pritchardville featured there in St. Helena Elementary School. In addition, there was some extensive work done at the Hilton Head High School campus as we fight to deal with graffiti in our schools. This was an example of one restroom that had been marked up, and our custodial staff went in and was able to surprisingly successfully remove the majority of the markings in this particular restroom. I would like to pause just to make sure no one has any questions for custodial, and I can move on with maintenance. Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to commend the staff for the extensive graffiti removal. As an AP, it just would drive me crazy to walk into the stalls and see. Thank them for it.
Okay, will do. Any other
Um,
questions for
Ms.
custodial?
Sine, any comments?
No, I just disheartening, that we try to our best to provide a good environment for students and they do that to their, whatever, it's discouraging, that's all. No comments. Thank you for the update.
Mr. Campbell,
No, I don't have any comments.
Colonel Guyer?
Yes, will the results of the survey be given later on in the briefing today?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It will be at the very end.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Smith.
Mr. Smith?
I have no comments.
Thank you, sir.
All right,
Yes,
so
thank
moving on to the maintenance, again, we're reporting on the period of time from January 1 to January 31st. So instead of going through line item by line item, I'm just going to go through each section and kind of give you some summary points of data. So for our work orders in the FY24 category, that data is covering the period of July 1, 2023 through January 31st of 2024. So those data points are updated according to that date range. We saw that the work order completion percentage, which is one thing that I track when I'm looking at this, did increase from a 93% when we reported last, which our last report to the operations committee was in December for the November period. So our new increase went to 98% in January. So we did see an uptick in that percentage. The other category that I look at is maintenance initiated work order percentage increase. And that did actually increase to 17% from the previously reported 12%. So we also saw an increase in that. Work order totals overall did increase by 248 work orders since our last reporting period. We did see the completed work order percentage decrease from 142% in November to 114% in January. So that just tells me that, you know, almost a 30% drop. We just had a lot of managers and staff in there really looking at open work orders and trying to get things closed out. Maintenance initiated work order percentage totals also increased from November, which we were at 14% to 23% in January. So the next section that we go to are our work orders by craft. So we look at our top 8 craft categories, and we look at what we're doing as far as a requested and completion for the month for those categories. So our 2 top front runners for the month of January were HVAC and plumbing. The HVAC work order total was 192 for the month. It did increase from November, which was we were at 138. May River High School had the highest HVAC work order totals for the month with 39. I do want to note for May River High School that maintenance did initiate 21 of these work orders. So out of the 39, we had 21 work orders that maintenance initiated and 18 work orders that the school initiated. What I found doing the work order analysis is those 21 work orders were primarily for maintenance staff going to check to ensure that systems were functioning and that units had been reset if needed, units had been taken out of alarm modes if needed, and also systems were diagnosed for part replacement. So you can see in the detailed report that during the month of January, we had units that needed just basic repairs such as broken belts, gear assemblies, supply motors, just standard typical HVAC replacement items. The maintenance staff did respond to these work orders and did return the systems to operational status. The secondary craft category that we saw a high number in were plumbing work orders. We had 202, which was an increase from our previous reported period. We had 144, excuse me, the previous period. Hilton Head High School did have the highest plumbing work order total for the month at 15, which really is not a considerable amount compared to previous months. Looking at that work order data, you can see that a lot of it, there was more of a random general need there for plumbing. Previous reporting periods, we had seen specific work order increase levels because of drain line clogs, because debris was being put in receptacles. This time it was not as much. So you can see that those occurrences have decreased, and it really was those 15 comprised of leaking toilets, sink repairs. There were a few toilets that were impacted that we did have to clear drain lines because of small debris. But I will say, looking at the 15 work orders, they were not all consuming of that particular repair. Again, maintenance did respond to those drain line impaction points. We did get those cleared, and maintenance was able to return them to functional status. Moving on to the school blitz spotlight. So during the month, maintenance picks a school and administers and does a school blitz. This month, they chose Ladies Island Elementary School in January, of course, at the request of the principal to support the Low Country Regional Leader in the Community Day. The maintenance staff, the account managers for maintenance, along with administration met, they collaborated and decided what those work order priorities were going to be. They were successful with that blitz, and they completed 80 work orders for a completion percentage of 98%. Moving on to work order completion totals, we have two sections here. North of the Broad data is at the bottom of page 5. And then south of the Broad starts at the top of page 6. So we pull these numbers to give each side of the Broad River totals to see how our maintenance crews are tracking on each side. So you'll see the total work orders requested for both north and south of the Broad schools did increase by an overall average of 160 work orders. In addition, we did see our completion percentages increase for both north and south. North of the Broad had 117% and south of the Broad had 124%. So that was good to see that increase compared to when we reported our last data set in November. It was 95% to 104%. So we did see that increase. Our completed work order percentages also increased for both north and south. North had 52% and south had 61%, and previously reported they were at 47%. So we saw an increase in that. So this is the big number that we always look at when we report in these categories every month, is how long is it taking overall average work order completion time to get these work orders done. We saw a decrease. So that's good. We previously reported in November, north of the Broad schools at 5.58 days to complete, and their new average was 4.89 days. And then south of the Broad schools were previously reported at 4.68, and their average now for January was 4.48. As far as staffing levels, so we're doing good with staffing levels. We've actually increased staffing levels. We previously reported 90%, now we're up to 95%. That is due into account the hiring of an HVAC technician and an electrician. So I can confidently and fully say that we are 100% staffed in our HVAC department. We have 5 technicians north, 5 technicians south, and then we have an HVAC manager that oversees both crews. So that was a tremendous thing for us to accomplish. We still have open vacancies for plumbers. and general technician. So we have 2 plumbing vacancies and we have 1 general technician vacancy. As far as recognizing success, I've already said ABM, you know, they were able to staff their HVAC department 100%. There was a lot of large project completions with our ABM maintenance team. They did large landscaping projects at Beaufort High School to trim a lot of that tree canopy around the athletic fields, primarily the baseball and the softball fields, as well as they did a lot of fence line cleanup, small project lighting. They did a tremendous amount of that throughout the district on multiple sites. And when I say small project lighting, they're getting up on the lifts and they're actually focusing on those higher bank lights in our cafeterias and our gymnasiums. So they were able to accomplish a lot of those types of projects, as well as they did an LED light conversion at Hilton Head Island Early Childhood Center in their common areas. And then the big thing that I want to just mention about ABM is they have been working on the last few months a development and assessment training program. And they put this in place to evaluate where the skill level and trade level is for their employees. And the goal, the long-term goal with this is for them to be able to try to, you know, work towards providing some sort of additional professional development or trade level certifications to their employees. The HVAC team was the first team that they have started doing this assessment tool with. So all of the HVAC technicians, with the exception of the new employee, which he will be completing his assessment soon, they have completed this assessment tool, which gauges where they are from a knowledge level as far as systems related to what their job duties are. So once those initial assessments are done, then ABM's management level team and then the operations district team here will meet in the coming months to see, okay, how, you know, where are we at with the assessments? Where did they come in at? And then what's the proposed training schedule for these particular staff members? The following next few sections are just basically Ladies Island Elementary School Blitz. So when they went and they did a school blitz, these are some of the before and afters of some, you know, school-wide projects that they found that, you know, again, this was driven by school administration. They identified what their priorities were. And so these are some of the highlights, the before and afters of what they focused on to get Ladies Island Elementary School ready for that Low Country Regional Leader in Me Community Day. All right, so that concludes maintenance. So I'm going to move on to the principal survey results. As long as there's no questions for our maintenance section.
Ms. Gordon? Any questions? For the maintenance?
Do you have questions for me? Oh, I'm sorry. No.
Okay.
Mr. Nate?
No questions. Very thorough. Thank you.
Colonel Guy?
Question, excellent job as always.
Thank you, Colonel.
Mr. Campbell?
No, nothing.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Smith?
No questions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ms. Major.
You're welcome. So the last part of the report that we would like to present for y'all today is the principal survey results. So during the November 14th operations committee meeting, Colonel Guyer, committee chair, and fellow committee members at that current time tasked the operations department with sending out a 1-question survey to principals. The goal was to gain feedback on the current satisfaction levels of the school district's custodial and maintenance service provider. And it was just 1 question. The 1-question survey was sent in January. The question asked of school administrators was, on a scale of 1 to 10, how satisfied are you with the current custodial service provider? And then a separate question was, how satisfied are you with the current maintenance service provider? Again, this is on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 very dissatisfied, 10 very satisfied. The results came in. We did survey 35 locations. Those locations not included all of our school sites, but it also included 3 program sites, which were adult education, Right Choices, and the school readiness program, which is like our component of early childhood readiness. All 35 locations responded, so we had 100% response rate, which is phenomenal. It took some extra work, but we got there. So the results for the custodial survey are 6.23 weighted average. And the result for the maintenance was 7.43. And you'll see in the last 2 pages, the result data in a graph form there. So you can kind of see on the scale of 1 to 10, how many, hit 1, how many hit 5, how many hit 10. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Otting so he can discuss or provide further recommendations to the committee.
Well, I just want to, and just acknowledge that some of HES's managers are present in the room and are here to answer any questions you may have about these results, but basically they have been on a quality assurance plan. And we have been that saying that started because we had concerns. We were starting a higher oversight. And needless to say, we are, and the HES management team, I think, would agree with us. We are very disappointed with these results. 6.23 is a failing grade. It shows that there is not complete confidence out of our school administration in our current custodial services. So based on that, unless the committee has any suggestions, our plan is to their contract was needing to be renewed. We're not going to renew their contract for this year, and we are going to go out for bid. So I'll take any questions you may have.
Ms. Warden?
I'm looking to see where the results are from the principals.
Since last page.
Last page.
So yeah. So the overall score was a 6.23, and then you see all the individual scores and where they fell between 1 and 10. And she has it up, it looks like it there as well. Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. I just wanted to see.
Mr. Nate?
I agree with putting out to bid for a new contractor. All the data doesn't lie. To the former chair's credit, I think that was a great idea coming up. But it seems now like it begs the question: what was dissatisfying about it? We got the one thing, but maybe we start to ask some follow-on survey questions and say, okay, why did you give it a 6.2 average kind of thing? So we can start to address that in potential new contractors.
Mr. Guy, Colonel Guy was here.
Colonel Guy?
He's on.
You're on mute, Colonel.
It would be very interesting to see the correlation by the school. Do we have more satisfaction at our newer schools than our older schools? I know we got to keep it kind of confidential so that principals don't get bad emails from the contractor. But it would be very interesting to know if there's any correlation between the age of the school. Also be interesting to know if there's difference between elementary schools, middle schools, high school. Different demographics. That would be interesting to know. But when you look at these numbers by statistical analysis, it is damning. for this contractor. And every principal that I've talked to, every one of them says their biggest complaint is they don't have the same staff every day. They come and go, and they don't build a relationship with teachers, with students like you would if they were staying at the same school. And I may be interested to see if that is a factor in the satisfaction vice dissatisfaction. Thank you.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes, I agree with Colonel Guyer, because they keep moving the people around, send them to different schools. Now, say for instance, if custodians working at Wellbrand, they will move that person and send them to Marseille. The other thing is that these contractors do not treat their people fairly. They will tell them they're gonna give them a raise, and then they don't give them a raise. And that is the reason why they're having such a problem. Thank you.
Mr. Smith?
Yeah, I would just to say that I agree with that last thing I agree with Colonel as well as some of what Ms. Campbell said as well. But one thing I will say is that there's a host of problems in terms of having these custodians. It's not that these custodians are getting new custodians. These schools are getting new custodians every day. Is that the problem is that they can't find some custodians, and they're not willing to pay these custodians what they're worth, and they realize that they're worth more than what they get paid. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is that no, these are actually new custodians who work one day and quit the next day. So they are continuing to hire and hire and hire. So it's not. I don't think it's so much that they keep moving around, or unless there's an HR issue where there's a problem with the custodians, and they move from a different school to give them another chance. So there's a host of different issues, and that's why I keep talking about bringing custodians back in house who are taxpayers, who serve the community, who live in the community, and they work within the community. Which that means that they take a honest day and they own what facilities we do have, and they will give that presentation that a principal wants someone to love their kids and to take pride in the buildings that they work in. So I think that's something else too that needs to be discussed. It's now the time also to bring custodians back in house for the betterment of our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Any comments, Mr.?
I would just, we did, on the surveys, we did provide a comment block, Colonel Guyer, just a general comments to provide, school administrators the opportunity to, give additional feedback. We do have that information. It is consistent with the comments that have been said so far this evening, as far as, the revolving door of staffing and just not having consistent staffing at locations, and just also not having that direct management oversight. So missing those tasks on the scope that they need to be hitting on a regular basis was also another one. So basically, in general, we have a custodian to take out the trash, but that's all they do. So there was a lot of those type of comments.
Okay, for our HES colleagues, this is not a persecution, so we don't, but if you're hearing these comments, and you see where it can benefit you in terms of elevating your services, please accept it in that vein. Okay? Absolutely. And Mr. Otting, I think as you consider going and putting it to bid, I also think just for analytical rigor, you should reconsider bringing it in-house with some rigor, because when I see it going outside, I'm sure there will be people who say, well, what if you do bring it in? So just put some rigor, some analytical rigor, some numerical, discipline around that, and show, yes, the lower, cost may not compensate for the qualitative degradation. Okay. Yes, sir. Is that fair? Mm-hmm. All right. Any other comments?
Oh, well, we did the you want to talk about maintenance at all, or? anything to
No, I
add?
mean, nothing really to add toward the maintenance, 7.43. Again, I mean, it's not a great score. You know, we're not discussing, a recommendation at this point to, put this particular contract out for bid. They do have one more, they're on there this coming, summer, they will be on their final extension in the contract. So the intent is for us to proceed with extending their contract for 1 year. And then we would at that point fulfill the full 5 years term of the contract, and we would go out for bid for maintenance in the January, February timeframe of 2025.
Okay, so if we may, let's leave it to the operations department, as we just discussed, with all the options, some rigor. And then come back at that time. Is that okay, Ms. May?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next item.
All right, OE8 facilities, this is our last item, and this will be me. This has been developed over a couple of years where we look at the policy as it's written. And then we have the superintendent's interpretation, and then following that are the how we're monitoring it. And what we're showing as a monitoring indicator is proof that we're providing these services as is specified in the OE. As far as the policy and how it's written, not much has changed, although I will note that we did add a section. You'll notice under the superintendent's interpretation, well, it used to say the superintendent will ensure that all physical facilities support the accomplishments of the board results policies are safe. Used to say and properly maintained. Last year, we did add the word secure. So that was a change. Outside of that, so we do have a definition of secure, but outside of that, most everything else in here is correct. So the thing to look for are the items in blue where there's the monitoring indicator. This shows how staff feels that we're meeting the requirements of this OE. They're the same format as last time. I will note that last time it was brought up that there was a feeling that we were not providing enough information on RFPs. So you will notice that since that time, since last year, over the last year, we have added to our executive summary at the very end, a report for RFPs. So it is our feeling that we're meeting all the requirements of OE8, and we provided all the monitoring indicators, and I will take any questions you may have.
Mr. Nay, Mr. Nay.
No questions. It's nice to see this document develop now that I've been on the board for more than a year now, and seen some of these things transpire as I've been on the board. So very thorough. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nay. Ms. Gordon?
No, thank you.
Colonel Guyer?
No comment.
Mr. Campbell?
No comment.
Mr. Smith?
No comment.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Thank you, Colonel Guyer. And Mr. Campbell?
Now, I will say, as this being an OE, we would need a motion to bring it forward to the board, or I would like to request that it be a motion.
Okay, would either of my partners like to make a motion to recommend
Consent agenda.
and to the consent agenda? Mr. Nay or Ms. Gordon?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Carries unanimous. Thank you all. Next one.
Which was it? Hold on.
Waiting so patiently.
She has been multitasking, period.
Yeah. No, good evening, Ms. Galvin and I are going to report on OE 16.1 and 16.2. to demonstrate that we are in compliance with posting our FOIA requests and responses to the district website as well as maintaining a FOIA log, which you've been provided. The following info about the share has been provided by Ms. Scott, who has been doing an excellent job with FOIA, I might add. So I'll keep this brief. I know we're at the end of the meeting. So in 2023, we had about 140 FOIA requests. In 2022, we had about 110. So that's about a 24% increase. February and April were the months where we had the highest number of requests. February, we had 19. The majority were from 3 repeat requesters, totaling 16 combined requests out of the 19. April, we had 15 requests. Again, the majority were from 3 repeat requesters, totaling 12 combined requests out of the 15. And overall, we had 3 requesters for the past, for 2023, that 64 requests in total that accounted for the percent. So we continue to respond to requests within the time frame required by South Carolina law and keep the website updated accordingly. And happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Mr. Nay?
Mr. Chair, I move that we add the annual FOIA report to the consent agenda to the full board.
Second.
Been properly moved in second. All in favor, by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimous. Okay. Next item is future topics. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Godwin.
Thank you.
Heard you want an analysis of custodial in-house. Be a future topic.
Any others? Ms. Gordon, Mr. Nay,
No, I don't have any topics for concern.
Colonel Guyer,
Nothing here, thank you.
Mr. Campbell,
No,
Mr. Smith.
Nope.
Okay. Looks like we may adjourn. The motion.
Next meeting,
Oh, it's the next meeting, yeah.
Meeting scheduled for Tuesday, March 12th. At 5 o'clock,
And that's our regularly scheduled.
that will be the second Tuesday.
Oh, first, second, yeah. March 12th. I think that's fine.
Okay.
Mr. Nay, is that work good for you?
Copacetic for me.
Okay,
Okay. I believe this meeting can be considered adjourned.
thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks to everybody who is on the network there. Appreciate it.
Hope Colonel Guyer gets feeling better.
Yeah, hope
Sounds-
you feel better, Colonel.
Yeah, he sounds
You've been
like-
rolling since early today, my friend.